fund is getting finished, it's not getting refilled on time. So, I mean, for us, fortunately, we have grown to a certain size. We can sometimes absorb these pressures, but for small and medium-sized companies, they absolutely need this help from the government, from the central bank, and of course from the government agencies. So I hope I finished in 5 minutes, but I would like to say more if you get a chance. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you. Thanks, Amar. And what we heard was transitions are inevitable, preparation is key, and it's a shared responsibility. And on the topic of access to finance, we will put Habib sir in the hot seat. And I think I will nuance. It's not just about access to finance, it's about the right kind of finance and the guide rails and the rules around just transition. I think there's three things that need to come together. What does just transition look like? What does good look like? How do we unlock the financing for it? And what are the rules that we need to play by? So hopefully this panel will have the answers. Habib sir, thank you again for making time today. United Nations Environment Program recognized Bangladesh Bank as the first central bank to implement green finance. And we've been under your leadership, it's been pioneering in various facets of sustainable financing. As a central banker, what do you think are the top two sustainable finance opportunities that will facilitate just industry transition in Bangladesh? Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. First of all, I like to thank the organizer to invite me to be here to speak something about. All we know that in the market structure, when there is a one seller, a lot of buyers, we call it monopoly market, right? And if you flip the card, and there will be one buyer and multiple sellers or very sellers. So it is called like monopsony. Bangladesh garments industry or apparel industry is facing a situation where that might not be close to monopsony, but very much close to that. Why is that? Because our major buyer is a United States and other one is European Union. There is major two buyers actually. And Bangladesh has to compete with a lot of other competitors to name China, Vietnam, Cambodia, India, and other likewise countries, even Sri Lanka. So there is huge competition. And in that competition, if you look back, the strength of the garments industry in Bangladesh uh, is very encouraging, I would say. Looking back at 2005, where MFA phased out totally, that is the quota system for country quota, which phased out in 2005. That was the time where we heard that Bangladesh garments industry will be eliminated, will be die out, it's kind of threat we have heard. But the garments industry in Bangladesh sustained very well. Afterwards, we have seen global financial crisis in 2007 to 9, and then catastrophic Rana Plaza incident in 2013, and then a lot of other incidents come one after another. And the industry as a whole in Bangladesh grew very strongly and with very sustainable manner. For central bank perspective, policy perspective, there are a lot of initiatives that Bangladesh Bank initiated. That to sustain in the current situation with the competitors like China, Cambodia, and Vietnam, you need to have transfer, or you need to have just a good transition towards, in terms of value, no more value should not be the focus. We should focus on, volume should not be focused. Volume should be replaced by the value, and low cost, cheap labor should be replaced with high efficiency, and labor-based technology should be replaced by, labor-saving technology, capital-based technology, through which we can be sustained in our competitive environment. To name two initiatives that Bangladesh Bank is looking forward to, we are providing low-cost fund. We know that in the garments industry, those who are big firm, they might have get fund from the overseas sources, but for the middle tier and lower tier manufacturers might not have access to the international fund. In that regard, Bangladesh Bank is providing low-cost refinance, in some cases free finance funding. Some from the domestic sources and some are from the international sources like GTF, uh, Green Transformation Fund. In addition to that, we do have encouragement for financial institutions, those who are lending to the garments industry. We call it green finance activities or green banking activities. That is ESG linked financing or long-term sustainability linked financing. Those who are doing, those financial institutions are doing it. We actually categorize them as a better category in our CAMELS rating. Also, we are adopting risk-based supervision nowadays. It is preparing, and from 2027, it will be. It is already on trial basis, but in full swing, it will be starting from 2027 onwards. And in that sustainability, that means green element of the uh, funding could be one of the element through which we will be justifying them as a one of the good category of financial institution. So to name separately, one is financial support from the central bank. The other one is to encourage or to motivate or to compel the financial institution to go for ESG linked financial activities or financial lending. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think access to finance is going to always be a hot topic. And not just in Bangladesh, globally, there's a lot going on in just transition financing. So I think we will be continuing to look towards you. And also accessibility of the funds, like the selection criteria, the risk criteria, Egula, how can we kind of make the pool bigger for those like the MSMEs to access this kind of financing. So we will be looking towards your guidance. Maybe Bangladesh will create the first just transition fund. Okay. Now I shall turn to Max, who is the country director for ILO. Fun fact about Max, he also speaks a little bit of Bangla, like Michael here. He actually graduated from high school in Bangladesh. But that aside, I think just transition, has somehow been synonymous with ILO because the ILO was one of the key architects for it. And I'll keep the question really short. Is how is the ILO supporting Bangladesh in embedding just transition principles within the national labor and industrial policies?
Thank you very much, Noreen, and thank you very much to the organizers for inviting the ILO to be here. It's my first Denim Expo in Bangladesh, and I can see that it's a very vibrant affair. And I'm really happy that the subject of just transition is on the agenda. I've also been very impressed in my first year in Bangladesh to see how many companies are really putting just transition at the forefront of their planning. We heard it just now from Amr, we heard it in the previous session. I've had the opportunity to attend the launch of an annual sustainability report, which really showed how companies are investing in environmental sustainability and seeing the benefit of that. At the ILO, in terms of embedding just transition in labor policies, it's really across everything we do. We're looking at integrating just transition across the various aspects of the world of work, when it comes to social protection, when it comes to child labor, when it comes to labor rights, various issues. We're always looking at the just transition angle, but I want to zoom into two particular areas, one where it's kind of work in progress and one where we've actually seen some concrete results already. So at the ILO, we can broadly split our work into two main buckets. One is around promoting jobs, which is critical around the world, given the transitions that you talked about, but particularly critical in Bangladesh and a top priority for the government at the moment. So jobs on one hand and labor rights on the other. The first example I'll talk about is from jobs. And one of the initiatives that we've been taking at the ILO recently is to see how we can more green TVET, technical vocational training. How can we integrate just transition and into the TVET ecosystem? It's definitely very much work in progress. We've had some success in reviewing the governance structures of the various TVET institutions around Bangladesh, looking at how they can, as an institution, improve in terms of energy consumption, water and waste management, et cetera, et cetera. But more and more, we're looking at how can we inform the skills, the competency standards, the training delivery, et cetera, to make sure that it's meeting the demands of the market. But this is where we're struggling a little bit. How can we get better information on what are the needs of the market so that training institutions can be geared towards providing those? We've invested a lot on the supply side when it comes to skilling. We want to do more to make sure we're matching the needs of the market with those skills training centers. So more and more we want to talk to industry to see how they can be involved in shaping the curricula, in providing some of that equipment. Amr, you're talking about digitalization and modernization and how these are changing. How can that equipment be shared with training institutions? How can that knowledge be integrated in the curricula? And also how we can also support on-the-job training so that these vocational training students can also find jobs, first training and then jobs in the industry. So we're looking at a greening around TVET. The second example looks more at the labor rights angle. And here we've had a very recent success. In April of this year, there was an amendment to the Bangladesh Labor Act. And for the first time, heat stress is acknowledged as an occupational disease, meaning that it's protected by law, that it's something that labor inspectors will be looking for when they're carrying out their duties in factories, but in different workplaces, trying to identify workers who are not only at risk, but whether employers are taking sufficient mitigation measures to prevent workers from heat stress. This is, I think, relatively easier in the RMG sector, in the formal economy, much harder in the informal economy, obviously in outdoor work, construction, agriculture, which is actually more susceptible. But I don't want to downplay the risks of heat stress in the RMG sector, where we have a lot of workers in close proximity to each other, equipment that is also generating heat. There is definitely a risk there, a risk that has consequences not only for productivity, but also obviously for causing additional injuries at work. So that is now there in law, and rightfully so. We've got evidence, and we're collecting more evidence to show what is the risk of heat stress in the RMG sector. I know that the IFC and Cornell University recently conducted a study on this and are looking at how they can better track, putting devices in different factories to better track heat on the workplace floor, and therefore thereby determine what mitigation strategies are most effective as well. And from the ILO side, we're working through our Better Work program, which covers 500 factories, 1.4 million workers in the country, to see how we can work through our enterprise advisors with factory management to better inform workers and management about the risks of heat stress and how that can be managed. Lastly, I would say that our work on policy to inform policies, whether it's on skills or whether it's on heat stress or whether it's on social protection or any other issue, this is not something that we are creating just drawing from international labor standards or creating from our own minds. This is the drawing really on consultation with the workers and the employers, with the industry associations, really trying to build a coalition of voices to make sure that what we propose in terms of policy solutions are very much geared to the specific needs here in Bangladesh. Thank you.
And absolutely, it's great to hear the focus on jobs, because two fun facts: the green transition will create 375 million jobs worldwide by 2030 if we invest in the right skills. And this is global statistic from World Economic Forum. I can share the report. And the other scary statistic is right now, globally, only 1 in 8 workers have the green skills that's needed to transition. So there's clearly a demand and supply gap, and hopefully, and skills is the opportunity dividend from just transition. I think that's going to be the currency that changes everything. Super. So, Michael, you will notice I sent everyone 2 questions as backup, but in the interest of time, I'm just focusing on 1 question, so don't be surprised. Michael, I think the key thing is GIZ Style Project is at the intersection of sustainability, labor, industrial transformation in Bangladesh's apparel sector. So, where is international development cooperation adding the most tangible value in advancing a just transition? And how is it complementary to neither what the government and the private sector can do? So, how is International Development Organization kind of filling a gap through the programs that they have to advance the just transition ambition Bangladesh has? 5 minutes.
Thank you so much. Thank you also for the invitation and the chance to speak here. I would also like to highlight that the Loudest Foundation has conveyed this fantastic Showo Shomonoi group where we are all strategizing on implementing tangible just transition effects in Bangladesh. So thanks a lot also for that occasion and opportunity. GIZ is not representative of all technical implementation bodies in the international space. Our projects are usually or mostly owned by the host government. So whatever we do is through governmental agencies, through associations, through institutions that are sustainably embedded in our partner countries. So in that sense, our contribution is inherently connected to policies and designs that are emanating in this case in Bangladesh. But I would like to touch, let's say, again on some elements of the definition of just transition and what might be relevant for the apparel industry also to consider. I'm a very bad dancer, but I like to dance a lot. Now, my best friend doesn't like to dance. So when we were young and there was a party, I would just jump into the dance floor and then another song would come and he would sit and do a little bit of movement but not stand up. I would go there, nothing. Next song would come, he would say, no, I need to go to the bathroom. Next song would come, oh, I need to get another Sprite. He never danced at the end. Now, let's avoid that just transition becomes like that. We have gone through sustainability, compliance, circularity. You know, there are many buzzwords that are pushed into our system. I'm exaggerating with the buzzwords because, of course, there are robust frameworks connected to it. But there's also always a risk that we end up in discussions like this, theorizing about what it could mean and what it should mean. Then we draft certain things and we try to push it into the reality. And at the end, it is not really changing much. And then the question would be, has something changed? Of course, a lot has changed. And we've heard that in the previous panels and in other discussions, of course, as well. And it's always a bit unfair because usually the industries that are represented in spaces like that are among the champions. So it's not fair to highlight the challenges because we are addressing the wrong audience in that sense. But I think it's still worth it because what we want is to have a collective approach for the industry and for the country and its future. And in that sense, we just had last week 2 events, one in Chittagong and one in Dhaka, that tried to discuss the technical nexus between water, chemicals, waste, and energy. And it is a little bit surprising that this is still so attractive. So we had 220 representatives in Dhaka, 185 in Chittagong. And of course, there were highly qualified experts. And we could show the business cases, what happens if you use greener chemicals, how much energy and water you can save with that as well, how the waste is reduced by simply changing basic things. So there is still a lot of housekeeping to do in the broader industry. Next element is 100 liters of water for 1 kg of garment, 4 liters of chemicals for 1 kg of garment. Will this ever be a sustainable green industry? No, impossible. it is physically and chemically impossible. Except we had the example of indigo 150 years ago. Some European or hopefully now Bangladeshi scientists invent something that will change the whole structure. Probably not happening, right? So we have to embrace as well that there are challenges that will remain. We shouldn't sell the narrative that this will become the, less resource intense industry of all. It will not, but we will do our best to manage it in a circular way. And that commitment, I think we all share. To highlight Bangladesh's position in this conversation is also relevant. We heard that in the previous panel. I am sure that we can change the narrative because at least for the German market, 30% of all unicolor t-shirts come from Bangladesh, around 25% of all jeans. So it is not that it's only for the Bangladeshi producers that the European market is interesting. It's for a lot of European companies that Bangladesh is essential for their business design. That means that they can help Bangladesh in lobbying with European governments or national governments of member states. But it also means that the narrative has to change, that the responsibility is a little bit more also on that side. And what challenges that could mean in practice is, something we could discuss. I'm always saying, without any knowledge of the industry, that if Trump wouldn't be there, probably some of the big companies would have already moved more orders to India. Maybe Bangladesh was a bit lucky that Trump is so randomizing in his tariffs. It could have happened that some of the big companies had already plans because the renewable energy and the energy mix, etc., is a bit more sophisticated in India right now. So let's not lose the opportunity that we still have to engage in these meaningful conversations. And the key aspect where we can jump my friend that was sitting there not wanting to dance, to make him dance, could be traceability. Of course, that is a bit wishful thinking, but I do think that if we have a proper structure in most of our factories, the data can help the factories and the industry to understand what easy wins can still be out there. I'm about to finish. Because we still see a lot of factories that do not use a proper ERP system. They use their data like handwritten in Excel sheets and then scale it and whatever. That's very difficult in today's times. So digital product passport and traceability, and it's a bit of a unlucky that Rahim Khan is not here today, but the Ministry of Commerce is taking a broad stand to own this process. And if we really can have a connection between the governmental ecosystem that it does not host, but does support the data structure within the factories, that could be a huge step to create a bit more of a level playing field. And finally, the workers. I had a look at the Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics data. The economic survey speaks about 1.8 million workers in formal jobs in the garment industry, while the labor survey, calculating it, speaks only about 0.9 million workers. So the data doesn't add up. So if we want to talk about just, and if we want to talk about getting rid, or not getting rid, but letting away workers, we need, and you said that as well, the informal sector, we need to know where.
Yeah.
And if we don't even know how many people are working there, then it's a challenge at least to connect them to greener skills or new employment for the future. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Michael. So we heard a few things, something about dancing and you claiming to be a good dancer. But jokes aside, I think it comes back to discipline. I think we need discipline of data. You can't move forward if you don't know what the numbers are. And that's why I loved Max's example about heat, because heat became because it was data driven, and it became one of the common areas where employers and employees could come together and create an action, and policy followed. I think it's a win in my books. So we need discipline of data, disclosure, and definitions so that just transition just doesn't become another fad. Lastly, and most importantly, Sultan Bhai, I think you've been in this space for a long, long time, and you've seen ups and downs and all the fads and things. But I think the most important thing is the phrase "just transition" now appears in policy documents, donor frameworks, buyer commitments, but workers rarely see themselves at the table where these agendas are designed, especially marginalized workers from the informal sector or formal sector. So, as someone who has spent a career advocating for labor rights and sat inside the policy machinery as a commission chairman, do you believe? How do you believe that Bangladesh's workers can be genuinely protected in this transition? Thank you. 5 minutes.
Thank you, moderator and fellow panelists, and thanks for inviting me, the organizers. It's a privilege to talk on this issue with this very prudent panelist. If I refer to my first panel speaker, his data, forget about BBS or economic survey, and he said it from his practical experience that last 2 decades he witnessed to reduce the workforce in two-thirds, one-third. So, and it should not be transition for the workers, because losing job is not a just, but even worse for us. No. So this is the challenge, that how we can make sure that for workers and for the industry and for the country, this transition is just. That is the main purpose of the whole journey, to ensure this thing. And to make it just, the first and fundamental condition that I have the confidence as a worker that I will retain in this job, and how we can do it. And that is, I think, the recommendation and guidelines from the Global Commission on Future of Work in 2019, formed by the ILO, and also ILO guidelines for the just transition. The just transition should ensure workers' job and decent work. It should ensure that the automation, all the preparation will make my job more easier, more comfortable, more decent. But in Bangladesh, we are the witness that we are losing the job, and how we can actually restrain it. That is the main question, and what my previous speaker says, that a collective action is necessary. And that is the main challenge, that when we say the collective action, or we can do something together, one stakeholder we always never think that include it in the policy making, to prepare the planning, and to implement it. That is workers. We cannot, in this whole long journey, we cannot actually build the confidence on one of the major stakeholder, that you are the part of the whole process. I'm sure when last 2 decades, when BGMEA or employers are seeing the declining of the workforce because of the automation, I don't know what I asked when I was discussing it as a commission chair to BGMEA and Skill Development Authority and Bangladesh government, that whether they have an integrated preparation, that how many jobs garments are losing, how many jobs they can replace to other sectors, and how many jobs they can retain by retaining them. Skill Development Authority says no, they don't have these types of any proposal from the association. So that is the part I think we need to, as in your question, the fourth question you mentioned, that what is the next step. So I think the first next step should to form a task force where all the stakeholders of the supply chain, national and international, should come together and to formulate the strategy how we can make it just, to build the capacity and confidence of the workforce and the industry, so that the transition will be just, and no factory will close and no workers will lose the job. So that is number one, I think, the first next step. And here government should take the referee and coordination role, but government alone cannot do it. So this is my first point, to present to the audience and the panel discussion. We can think. No one left behind. It is the slogan for last 30 years in our globe. But in Bangladesh, actually, we never see that is happening. When Bangladesh Bank allocate money for, um, reintegrating the skill and everything, it was never discussed with the association or the other things. Their planning is like top-down approach and everything. Second is the preparedness. I listened to the previous panelist. Each and everybody said that we need preparation, capacity building and everything. For whom capacity building? It's not only the government diplomat and everything. Of course, they need for the negotiation and everything, but we need our workers and employers capacity building also, especially our workers capacity, so that they can cope with the automation and other things also. But is there any master plan like this? That we need to question ourselves, and that should be one of the steps, that how we can build the capacity of the our workers. And another thing I would like to say, that actually just transition for the apparel industry, not only limit within the apparel industry. We need to look at other areas of the country where these apparel industry workers can actually absorb. If at all we cannot do it here. Is there any mapping like this, that where the new scope will come? We are talking that ILO report saying there is million of job opportunity will be there. Sometime our expert also says, but whether we have this mapping on that, how we can prepare the surplus workforce of this thing, and how we can reduce the dependency of the one industry, because this dependency is becoming a psychological factor now, for government, for country, for employers, for workers also. Always you fear that there is a tariff, we are going to lose my job, we are going to lose my business. You cannot run an industry a sustainable way. You cannot lead this transition world with always fear in mind that we are going to lose, we are going to lose. So I think a national confidence building is very much necessary, that we have the capacity now to face the challenge, and to we have the competitiveness to do these things. And that you cannot do only by giving concentration or all the incentive and everything in one industry. We need to go beyond this thing. So collective action and very well-planned steps is very much necessity, with the integration and consistency for this thing. And that one major stakeholder is workers, and their association, union in global and national need to be participated. Thank you very much.
Sultan Bhai, you're always so eloquent. I wanted to ask the organizers, do we have an option of audience Q&A, or we can take 2 questions, any burning questions? Otherwise, I'd love to give time back to everyone. No, okay. I think, oh yeah, okay. I can give you my mic. Okay, great. And we have time for one more question. Just your name, which organization you're from, and any particular brilliant panelist that the question is directed towards. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm Shamim Usman from Padma Textile Limited as a team leader. I have 2 questions. One of the question is, how can sustainability initiatives create new employment opportunity rather than eliminate job? Because this are AI generated era. And another one is, what responsibilities do brand manufacturers and the governments have in ensure just transition?
Okay, so the 2 questions, I don't think we have time for 2 questions, so I'll take the second question, because it's, if I can repeat, Bhaiya, you said that what responsibility do manufacturers and brands have in advancing a just transition, correct?
Right.
Which brave gentleman wants to take a stab at it? Yeah, let's ask the manufacturer.
Yeah, thank you. A very good and valid question. But as I said in the beginning, this is part of the process, and we have to accept that there will be shift in the job culture and job structures. We need to reskill, we need to upskill. But as our last gentleman, Mr. Sultan said, that sometimes we'll come into a situation where the worker is absolutely not able to cope up to the new technology. So we have to find a way to put him to a different industry so that we can, the industry, the country can absorb that person in a different industry. So we have to figure that out, and that needs a combined effort from the government, from the all the associations, BBS, who has all the statistics, which needs to be correct, so that we can take the right decision. And of course, at the same time, you might be having questions. So what will we do with these people? Because first of all, we are businessmen. The business needs to be sustainable. We're talking about sustainability, but if the business itself is not sustainable, then there's no point talking about sustainability all the time. So we need to make sense when we're talking about sustainability. So yeah, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Amar. Would anyone else like to add something to Amar's points? I did like the quote. The industry has to be sustainable for sustainability. Max, go on.
I mean, I think the point was raised by a previous speaker about it being a shared responsibility. I think more and more consumers and markets, international markets, are expecting the brands that they buy from to act in a sustainable, responsible manner. And that's putting pressure also on factories here in Bangladesh, on the industry here in Bangladesh. And I think they see that this is actually also good for business. We heard it from the previous panel as well as from Amar, that this is where the investment is going, making sure that they're ready for the next 5 years from now. So I think definitely there is a big responsibility on the brands and the buyers, but also on the industry here in Bangladesh. And I would say that's also, shared with the government. And here I would like to appreciate the government for the step that they've taken with the NDC 3.0 and the inclusion of a dedicated chapter on just transition. I think it's really an important entry point for us as the ILO, as well as workers and employers organizations, to have that seat at the table, to be able to inform these discussions on how we deal with this transition and make sure that it's just, to make sure that those workers who are at risk of losing their jobs can be reskilled or find new opportunities, and also that the investments are also supporting enterprises. Because I think one of the risks that we take here is that we assume that all enterprises are alike. I think there are a lot of enterprises who are also struggling in this transition and also need support. I mean, if they're not sustainable, then they're not hiring people. So we have to help both workers and enterprise alike to manage this transition in a just way. Thank you.
Yeah, I just would like to add one perspective. We are criticizing new regulations coming up from the EU and other markets, but those, of course, do not come out of the blue. They come out of climate change and its effects, of course, but they come also out from the conclusion that it's not enough to leave a voluntary system to brands and suppliers to negotiate and navigate around the well-being of humans, environment, and etc. So to force a little bit is a reaction to that lack of commitment, maybe. And we understand from the logic of profit-oriented spaces that's not so easy. But one specific example for Bangladesh is always these cash incentives. This is one of the lowest tax to GDP ratio country in the top 30. And still we're all subsidizing the price negotiations between the buyers and the suppliers. And that is not something that is fair to anyone, because we're losing money for the education that we need for the green skilling, for example.
Okay. So what we heard was look at the policy levers that we can use to kind of ground truth the conversation and link it with global local, right? Using fiscal tools or whatever, other mechanisms. And yeah, I mean, regulations are not just made for the hell of it. And also there is I feel as a country that's almost 50 years old at the precipice of climate change, and আমি এই পার্টটা এখন বাংলায় বলবো because I think majority of us are Bangla speaking here, is Bangladesh is we're not new to challenges. We have faced all the challenges. I think Habib Saro বলেছেন MFA হলো, রানা হলো, কত কিছু হলো। আমরা কিন্তু পিছিয়ে যাই না। And the important thing is that climate-এও Bangladesh has become the face of adaptation. So just transition আজকে বলি আর কালকে যা বলি, climate change is not going to go away. We can actually take that NDC chapter, make it into a reality by bringing all the stakeholders together, doing it in the way that the rest of the world can follow. Because we don't always have to take models that are coming from somewhere else. We can build our own models that are based on the knowledge and what we've done right in navigating some of these risks. So there's an opportunity here. Last 1 minute for everyone. Imagine we are in 2027, June something. We're sitting here a year from now. What would have we done right to show action on just transition on Bangladesh? I'll repeat the question again. In a year from now, just transition maybe has gathered traction and in Bangladesh, and what have we done right between now and 2027 June to show that we're on the right path? I will start from this order first. I'll ask Sultan Bhai in 1 minute to answer what have we done right? And then we'll end the session. Wale.
Thank you. Thank you. Actually, after 1 year, actually, I would like to say that everybody build the confidence that this transition is just for them, for the workers, for the employer, for the country, and for the nation. And they participate in this transition to make this transition just. So this is my humble submission that after 1 year we can do it, and we need to prepare for this. You know, the preparation is the word which is the key word for this thing. So if there is a strategic plan that how we can prepare all the stakeholders and give the message to the global community that in Bangladesh we are together and we are standing for the industry, for the country, for the workers, for this thing. And, you know, for last decades, last 3-4 decades, global community actually benefited by our labor, by our cheap labor, by our environment, by everything. Now it is the time we can tell them that payback, not payback by a compensation, but payback to give the fair share, fair price and everything. So that is the, thank you.
Yes, maybe very specifically, I would hope that we have consolidated the online effluent treatment plant monitoring that we are supporting at the Department of Environment. And that is a very specific example, but it should illustrate the ownership of local authorities over many of the processes that are relevant for a just transition.
Thank you.
A few short ones. One is that we are able to demonstrate through the islands of good practice that exist, those enterprises that are already investing a lot in this space. Through those demonstrations, we're able to rapidly increase the number of companies that are following suit so that we move from islands to this becoming more mainstream across the industry. Two is to really gather from the industry where are those opportunities, those jobs, when it comes to the skills of the future, and we're able to transfer that into the vocational training programs or education programs. And three is specifically what we were talking about, heat stress in the RMG sector, that we're actually able to see the translation of law into practice, meaning that either we see concrete mitigation measures on the factory floor, or we see labor inspectors penalizing employers for not enacting such measures. Finally, I would say we will have in 1 year, inshallah, a convening body, an alliance that is active through Shoba Shomanoi that brings together workers and employers, government, from different industries, that is able to translate a lot of these commitments into action. So I'd say to Michael, turn on the music, let's dance.
Okay, 1 minute, right? So from the government and central bank perspective, we have had very important initiative for supporting apparel industry. To name a few, we ensured access to fund through Export Development Fund, EDF, to name. Plus, government has incentive mechanism which might not be available after a few years, maybe a couple of years or more. Having said that, garments industry or apparel industry in Bangladesh have had very strong footing in terms of uh, following the international guidelines for sustainability, for green. If you look at the lead certified industries in the country, Bangladesh is one of the leading nation in that respect. Uh, I think in addition to government, private sector might need to play some role in terms of upskilling the workers, also in terms of pushing the negotiation to the, it's like, diplomatic, economic diplomacy, uh, to have some free trade agreement, to have bilateral agreement. I think we'll be uh, required to see ourselves after 1 year in a better position in terms of market penetration in the world. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Of course, I would love to see Bangladesh in a very good position after 1 year. That's what I dream of. That just transition started in the right way. We are moving forward. We become an example. Reality, when I check the reality, I feel that yeah, we will probably be there, but in a different way, we will lose jobs. That's the reality. But the good part is we'll have a lot of new people coming in who are more skilled because we also have a lot of issues of unemployment of skilled people who are not in the job market. So this is what happens. I mean, even in AI, we say that my job will be replaced by AI. That is wrong. My job will be replaced by a person who knows AI. So this is where the difference of understanding is, and I think that's going to be the same case in our industry. People will lose job, but then again, new people will come in. Of course, lesser number of people, but they'll be more skilled. Thank you.
Can we get a round of applause for our wonderful panelists? Thank you. You were great. I promise we would take less than an hour. We have 1 minute left, so we're done. Thank you. I think time for a group.
Requesting all the panelists to kindly stand for a group photo, please.
And thank you for our wonderful organizers wherever they are. It's always awesome.